Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're digging into a big one. We've got a stack of foundational tests and articles all about the engine room of human knowledge itself, science.
That's right. And our focus today is less on what science knows and much more on how it knows it. The mission here is to get past the rote memorization, the formulas, the
Or
dates.
periodic table flashbacks.
Exactly. We want to get a real handle on scientific inquiry as a way of thinking. It's a dynamic thing, and it's all driven by this really deep, almost childlike curiosity.
So this isn't a textbook review. It's
No.
more of an investigation into the act of discovery. We're trying to get back to that fundamental why question, which is probably the most powerful tool we've ever come up with.
It really is. I mean, if we start with the basic definition, science is essentially a system.
A system.
A systematic way of doing things. It's a method of observing, of experimenting, and of building models, all designed to create explanations about the universe that you can actually test.
There's an analogy in the source material I really liked. It describes science as this huge, unending jigsaw puzzle.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right, and every new discovery, every confirmed idea is just one more piece you're adding to this massive picture of reality.
And the really beautiful thing about that analogy is that it's unending. The moment you place a new piece in the puzzle, the whole picture shifts a little, and suddenly you see, 10 new empty spots you didn't even know were there.
So knowledge isn't an endpoint.
Never. It's just a launch pad for the next set of questions.
And that gets to the really humbling part. Right?
Yeah.
That sometimes you find a new piece that fits perfectly, but it proves that another piece, one that everyone thought was totally settled,
Is in the wrong spot the whole time.
Exactly. It just upends everything.
And that's the whole game. That's the dynamic nature of it. You have to accept that our best explanation right now is just the least wrong one we've got so far.
And what drives that whole process, that constant checking and rechecking?
It's just pure, simple curiosity, the desire to figure it out without that urge to look closer and ask, wait, how does that work? The whole thing just grinds to a halt.
Once that engine gets going, you start to see that science is, well, it's everywhere.
Everywhere. It's not just for people in lab coats. It's in everything. The
Right.
food you eat, the sky, the ground.
The sources really drive this home. They talk about the sheer breadth of it. You could be looking at something tiny, like the structure of a grain of sand, or something absolutely massive, like the forces that build a mountain range.
Or even just a single leaf in a forest. It's all part of this interconnected web that we can study scientifically.
Let's talk about some of the big mysteries that science has, sort of cracked.
Okay, so take the stars. We look up, we see them shining. A simple observation. The scientific question isn't, is it magic? It's what's the process? What chemical reaction is creating all that heat and light for so long?
And the answer is thermonuclear fusion, deep inside the star's core.
Right. Or something a bit closer to home. How do flowers know when it's time to bloom? You see a whole field of them open up at once, and it almost looks coordinated.
Like they're all on a schedule.
But it's not a schedule. It's a complex biological clock inside the plant that's measuring the length of the day and tiny shifts in temperature.
And that discovery, which sounds kind of abstract, has these huge real-world consequences.
Huge. If we understand why they bloom, we can improve agriculture all over the world. It helps us with crop rotation, with predicting harvests. It connects directly to, global food security.
So it all starts with just observing the world around us, which naturally leads to these foundational topics:
Yeah.
Earth, life, and materials.
Exactly. We look at our planet, Earth. The observation is that it's the only place we know of that has life. That's not just a fact to memorize. It's the starting point for a dozen fields of science trying to figure out why. What's the special recipe?
And life itself.
I
The sheer variety is staggering. You have life thriving in the deepest oceans and the driest deserts. The scientific question there is how?
How did they adapt? That's the core of evolutionary biology. Or you see a seed become a plant, or a caterpillar turn into a butterfly. We call it metamorphosis. Science gives us the mechanism, the genetic code that's running that whole incredible transformation.
What about materials? We're just surrounded by paper, metal, plastic.
And science isn't just about naming them. It's about understanding their properties. Why does metal conduct electricity? Why is rubber a good insulator? Why does a magnet stick to my fridge but not a wooden door?
And as you start testing those properties, you're moving into physics and chemistry. Take something as basic as water.
Right. We all learn it has 3 states: solid, liquid, gas, ice, water, steam.
But the scientific insight isn't just naming them, it's understanding the why. Why does adding just one more degree of heat at 100 degrees Celsius suddenly cause this massive change from a liquid into a gas?
That's the study of phase change. It's about the energy it takes to break the bonds between molecules. And understanding temperature itself, not just as hot or cold, but as a measurement of molecular energy that lets us model everything from weather patterns to how to build a better engine.
Okay, so this brings us to the real core of this deep dive. Curiosity is the engine, observation is the fuel. But what's the roadmap? What is the actual rigorous process that makes science reliable?
That's the scientific method.
The scientific method.
It's the backbone. It's a step-by-step repeating process that forces us to be objective and to test our ideas against reality. It's what turns a good guess into actual credible knowledge.
So let's walk through the 6 steps, not as definitions, but as like hurdles you have to clear to make sure you're doing it right.
Sounds good. So step 1 is observation. And this is more than just glancing at something. It's focused awareness. You notice a pattern or something weird that doesn't quite fit.
Step 2 is the question. This is where you narrow down. So it's not just, why is my grass dying? It's more specific, like, is the soil in this one particular patch too acidic for this type of grass?
That focus is absolutely key. Which brings us to step 3, the hypothesis. This is your proposed answer, your educated guess.
And it has to be specific.
Specific, and this is the most important part, it has to be falsifiable.
Meaning you have to be able to prove it wrong.
Exactly. If you can't think of an experiment that could possibly prove your idea is wrong, then it's not a scientific hypothesis, it's just a belief.
That's a huge distinction. Okay, so once you have a testable hypothesis, you move to step 4.
Step 4, the experiment or the test. This is where the rigor really comes in. You have to control your variables.
You can't just change 5 things at once and see what happens.
Right, because then you don't know what actually caused the change. You have to design a controlled test. You change only one thing, like the soil's pH, in one small area, and you leave another area, the control group, completely alone.
Okay, so you run the test. Then step 5 is analyze.
This is where you collect the data. You measure the results. You look at the numbers. Did the grass in the patch where you changed the pH actually get healthier compared to the grass in the untouched patch?
And that leads you to the final step, step 6, the conclusion.
Yep. And this is where you decide if the results support your hypothesis or if they refute it. And notice the language there. We almost never say a hypothesis is proven.
We say the evidence supports it.
Exactly. Or the evidence refutes it, which means you have to go all the way back to step 2 and come up with a better question and a new hypothesis. It's a loop.
You can really see the power of this when you think about something complex like medical research. They're doing this constantly.
Constantly. Observing patterns in patients, forming very precise hypotheses about genetics or treatments, designing huge, rigorous clinical trials, those are the experiments, and then analyzing mountains of data to draw very careful conclusions.
Let's go back to that simple plant example, the one growing towards the light. But let's look at it through this proper 6-step lens.
Okay, so the observation is simple. The plant bends toward the window. The question is, what's the mechanism causing that, and what's the purpose?
The hypothesis from early botanists was that it's doing this to get more sunlight for photosynthesis, to make more food.
A good falsifiable hypothesis. But the experiment to test it was actually pretty clever. It wasn't just about watching it. They had to cover different parts of the plant. They manipulated the light. They tried to isolate what part of the plant was sensing the light and causing the bend.
So the controlled experiment might be putting one plant in full light, another in partial light, and a third in darkness, and then measuring the growth and direction.
Precisely. And the analysis of those experiments revealed the role of hormones, things called auxins. The cells on the shady side of the stem actually grow longer and faster than the cells on the sunny side, and that's what physically forces the stem to bend towards the light.
So the conclusion confirms the hypothesis. The plant bends to get more light. But it also, and this is the key thing, it opens up the next chapter.
Right. Now the new question is, okay, how are those cells detecting the light difference? It never, ever ends. The method doesn't just give you an answer, it points you to the next, deeper question.
Which really brings us full circle. Science isn't the list of facts in a book. Those facts are just the temporary conclusions from this ongoing process.
The real science is the process itself. It's the endless application of this method, all of it fueled by that initial spark of curiosity.
So I think the main takeaway for you listening is that being scientifically literate isn't about memorizing the elements. It's about understanding the method. It's knowing how to ask a good question and how to think about testing it.
And, while collaboration is so important today, you have these huge teams working on big problems. It always starts with an individual. It starts with your own personal spirit of inquiry. You're the one who has to notice something doesn't add up and decide to investigate.
So we want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. We talked about how new discoveries can force us to move a piece of the puzzle, to rethink what we thought was settled fact. So here's a question. Considering everything we think we know today, what is one widely accepted fact in any field, physics, biology, whatever, that you suspect might be the next piece to get moved? The next big idea that future inquiry will correct?
It's a great question to ask. At the end of the day, to be a wise person, you have to first be a wise person. You have to keep asking. Thanks for diving deep with us.